Brandon here with another video to make you 1% better. I often get asked for book recommendations. I'd like to bring your attention to a video I made on Clark's channel that reveals the 7 best books I read in 2016. If that wasn't enough for you, then tune in to this video because I'm about to share with you 7 more books that have the potential to completely alter the way you see the world. If you like any of the books, feel free to use the Amazon affiliate links in the description below at no cost to you. I appreciate your support. Here we go. Stealing Fire: How Silicon Valley, the Navy SEALs, and maverick scientists are revolutionizing the way we live and work by Stephen Kotler and Jamie Will. There is a revolution happening in plain sight. Elites are harnessing altered states of consciousness to solve critical problems and upgrade their lives. The golden nugget is perhaps the idea of hedonic calendaring, a way of structuring how often you invest yourself into seeking out altered states, or what Stephen calls ecstasis. This will help you avoid becoming a bliss junkie, which is someone who overindulges in ecstasis. There are many reports of cave divers and wingsuit flies who've chased the high all the way to the cemetery. Another reason to avoid becoming a bliss junkie is you would no longer experience altered states because you need to live in a normal state for that contrast to exist. For me, the most intriguing idea in this book was that of the irrepressible desire to seek non-ordinary states being the 4th evolutionary drive, much like eating, sleeping, and sex. Just look at how many people around the world are omming, swigging red tins, smoking bowls, and dropping them tabs. This idea stems from Ronald Siegel's 1989 book Intoxication, in which he documents his decades of research regarding the effects of intoxicants on wild animals. I learnt that dolphins deliberately bite pufferfish to get high. Would you believe it? Some dogs reportedly lick cane toads in Queensland, Australia, me home country mate. And even bloody Australian wallabies get high on poppy plants. Stuart Walton, author of Out of It, puts forward the need of a new field of study: intoxicology. The next one is How Not to Die by Michael Greger. Once a full-blown meat eater, I'm now a vegetarian, and have been for exactly 90 days since I read this book. What I love about Michael's work is that he doesn't shame you by shoving his strong views of animal morality down your throat. He doesn't even mention it. Instead, his book is hyper-focused on the irrefutable evidence on how eating a plant-based diet can prevent and reverse the 15 most common deadly diseases on the planet. Part of his motive for writing the book was because his grandmother unfortunately died from heart disease at age 65. What further separates this book from the saturated health and dieting market is that Michael doesn't try to sell you anything. His website nutritionfacts.org is a not-for-profit. The book in 4 words: no meat, more plants. P.S. To the vegans watching this, you may be wondering why I haven't turned vegan. I shed light on my views in the upcoming podcast, so stay tuned. Book number 5, Confessions of a Media Manipulator by Ryan Holiday. How much time do you spend reading stuff online? If you're on sites like BuzzFeed, The Wall Street Journal, and Business Insider, then chances are it's been meticulously crafted to grab your attention at a steep cost. Ryan was once paid to lie to the media so they could lie to you. He wrote this book because he was tired of a world where blogs succumb to bribes, marketers help write the news, and reckless journalists spread lies. And no one is accountable for any of it. In the world of mainstream media, nothing matters except getting as many page views as humanly possible in the shortest amount of time. Page views equals money. Many bloggers are required to hit up to 1.8 million page views a month, otherwise they get the sack. Credibility in articles doesn't matter. It takes too much time to get valid sources, and time is money, right? It also gives other bloggers a chance to steal your search traffic by throwing out some bullshit before you can. If you do take the time to validate your article, just grab a bullshit source from helpareporter.com, hope your readers don't question it, and you're sweet. If they do question it, create another article that addresses the bullshit with more bullshit because you'll get even more page views. Oh, and don't forget to craft misleading titles like, Did Where's Wally rape and murder a young girl in 1990? Sure, why not? Whatever gets clicks. So what's the golden nugget here? Read books. Not unreliable clickbait jargon from mainstream media giants. If you're not convinced, I recommend you read the book. Ryan's stories will shock you. Moving on to number 4, Chasing the Scream by Johann. Sorry Johann if I'm saying your name wrong. Johann's work indicates that addiction is not what we think it is, and that legalizing drugs is one of the most profound and uplifting changes we can make for the good of humanity. The notion of legalizing drugs, even so-called hard drugs like cocaine, often invokes a negative response, especially from politicians. But unlike many of us, Johann was open-minded enough to consider the idea and do the research. He travelled 30,000 miles to dig up old documents, speak to impoverished prisoners that came from deep within the horrific Mexican drug cartels, and to hear stories from transgender crack dealers in the streets of Brooklyn. Before reading Johann's book, I thought the idea of legalizing cocaine was insane. I hold that view no longer, and look forward to conversing with Johann on the upcoming podcast. You'll be amazed how legalizing drugs has been shown in multiple places around the world to be extremely beneficial for the recovery of drug addicts, uplifting the economy, and restoring peace in violent neighborhoods. Next up, a friend I met in Thailand suggested I suss out this thing called the Enneagram. So I picked up a book called The Wisdom of the Enneagram, the complete guide to psychological and spiritual growth for the 9 personality types. The title makes it sound like a new age woo-woo book, so I was skeptical. I heard many readers who deeply resonated with their supposed personality type. Immediately, I presumed the book employed cold reading techniques used by mentalists and psychics to imply that the reader knows much more about the person than the reader actually does. I was also acutely aware that fans of this book may have been deeply receptive to confirmation bias, meaning they chose to resonate with information that matched what they thought about themselves and discarded the rest. But boy was I shocked. You can chuck that shallow 16 personalities Myers-Briggs bullshit out the window. This is the gold standard of personality testing. In my experience, it's 10 times more useful and makes you go, ah, so that's why I jerked the Gurk in the mountains whilst riding my motorbike simultaneously. Well, that's just me. Anyway, any fucking way, it gives you concrete action steps that you can apply to your life immediately. As you know, self-awareness is critical for living a fruitful life, and this book helps you cultivate that more than any other book I've read. Aristotle said, "Know thyself." The only significant mention I've heard of the Enneagram in the global self-development space is a mention by biohacker Dave Asprey in one of his podcasts. Why aren't more people talking about this? It is, by far, the best $25 I've spent this year, hands down. Number 2. The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani. You either love or hate this book, depending on how you respond to having your deeply held beliefs challenged. I believe this book is a perfect introduction to the success mindset for those new to self-development. I didn't learn anything particularly new, but I did deeply resonate with what Vishen was saying, especially in regards to how being brought up in an Australian religious family has altered my perception of the world. That brings us to number 1, The Truth, an uncomfortable book about relationships by Strauss. This is different to your everyday self-development book, with neatly bulleted lists of action steps and categorized lumps of text. I tried to rate it 6 stars on Goodreads.com, but it's capped out at 5. Neil is the author of The Game, a controversial bestseller about pickup artists. He ends up in a Hollywood mansion with the world's greatest dating coaches, roots girls on the daily, and his buddy games Paris Hilton. The Truth, on the other hand, is a book he published 10 years later. It's a brutally honest account of his search for maintaining a long-term, intimate relationship and fulfilling his sexual fantasies with other women simultaneously. I highly recommend reading The Game before The Truth so you can be mesmerized by how much Neil transforms as a person. The Truth is the epitome of masterful storytelling and is a must-read if you're constantly questioning what your love life has in store for you. Thank you for listening, guys. I really appreciate your attention. Leave a comment below if you have a book recommendation. I can't guarantee it, but I do try and answer every comment. Thanks guys, have a great day.